Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm joined by a returning guest. He is a huge friend of the show, a guest that has been on now for the 12th time. 12th time. He is the creator of the Fast Lane program, Fat Loss Fast Lane program. Just opened a new gym in Richmond as well. Mr. Robb McGeary, welcome to the show again, mate.
Oi, it's worrying me now because that means my next episode, if there is one, is 13.
We'll have to do it on a Friday just to push the fucking
On a Friday to really test the universe and see
That's
what
it.
it fucking wants to do. Let's talk about
See what other wars start when we do that.
Yeah, let's do dark. Let's do a really dark fucking subject.
Yeah. That's a shout. Let's fucking come in and go hot on something. Yeah. We're This is an interesting idea we've had for this episode, right? There's a little bit of a role reversal gonna happen where we're going to talk about my ultra marathon, but you're going to lead with some of the questions that you want to ask me, and hopefully the listeners want to know the answers to those questions as well. In regards to the ultra marathon, I know you took some real intrigue with regards to it anyway. What was the intrigue on your end? Just the distance.
So what's always intrigued me is the notion of endurance type challenges. And as I'm entering this new era of my life where I want to test myself, I want to see what I can do that I've never done before. Endurance is definitely that end of the spectrum, the fitness spectrum. I've never been. Any event we've done previously, like the fan dance, was it 17 kilometers on the Jurassic Coast with
it was, yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous, right? That's not something that's not a distance I've ever traveled. And even like smaller things like adventure style races with my old boot camp company, there are always things that really were a mental battle for me as well as a physical battle. And it just made me stop, come close to quitting. I didn't enjoy anything of it. So it's always fascinated me when it comes to these long endurance events and there's guys that actively like enjoy the pursuit of that endurance level and do something as crazy as an ultra marathon. Because just in case anyone isn't sure, because I'm not sure, how long is an ultra?
Well, it's anything longer than a marathon from what I can understand. So in relatively speaking, the ultra I did was actually a short ultra.
Okay.
But of course, you can run ultras that are really flat and there's no kind of course it's endurance, but there's no kind of other element of challenge to it. It's just you are running this amount of distance, but the terrain is okay and it's almost like a road run. Yeah. But the ultra I did was 34 miles and had 1,600 meters of 1.6k of elevation in it. Yeah.
So that kind of leads us nicely to my first question: is what inspired you to take that on as a challenge then?
There were two reasons, really. The first one was Peter Sage's talk at the bridge when he was talking about his Atlantic row and how it's important for him as a coach to keep diving into being able to prove to his clients that what he's talking about, he can do as well. And I was like, I really like that point. And I was obviously with the coaching side of what I offer, weight loss is huge in terms of what I've offered for the first 18 months to 2 years of my journey. And I've kind of hit like a place where I'm not losing weight technically at the minute. I'm just working on my body shape, right? So, but obviously now I offer the mindset level of the coaching as well and improving your mental health and now the journaling side of stuff as well and reaching for new heights that you didn't think you could get. I was like, okay, like I need to do something where I'm reaching a little bit further than potentially what I think I can. So in April this year, I did the Weymouth half marathon and literally for a first half marathon, I pretty much fucking nailed it. I did it in 1 hour 54, less than 2 hours, which was what I was aiming for. And really it was quite comfortable. So leading on to the second point, the choice from there with distance was do a marathon or really stretch myself and go full fucking whack. And I decided off the back of Peter's talk to go, do you know what? Fuck them. Like, with greatest respect to marathon runners, fuck the marathon. I want to go one bigger and go to a distance that I never even thought was possible probably 2 years ago. Yeah.
Would you say, based on what you know now of doing the ultra, would you say skipping the marathon as an event was a positive or a negative?
Positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because most marathons are road-based running.
Okay.
And when one thing that I've learned pretty quickly with the running side of things, I'm certainly no running expert at all, but one thing I have found is that I've found the new love for trail running now. So taking the road element out of it and worrying about time and actually going out into like, well, what relatively is the countryside, right? And running around areas that you don't really know that well, or you do know quite well, and seeing different things and seeing how the weather changes, how the paths change, and all that kind of thing. Because road running is good, but I enjoy road running and it's a good place to get PBs and all those kind of things. But sometimes it's quite like I find road running is more brutal on your body than actually what that sounds ridiculous. No, they're both brutal, but just in different ways. Like the impact of the road is different to what running on grass is. But obviously, when you're doing, like, let's just say the Jurassic Coast Ultra, which I did, the incline, the terrain you're on, that's also quite brutal as well. Yeah.
I find it interesting that a lot of people, their bucket list is the London Marathon.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who do it, and obviously the ballot's completely packed out every single year. But I find that odd because it's completely flat, almost really. Okay, maybe the slightest, tiniest 5-degree incline tops, knowing the route.
Yeah.
And I get it. Some people, it's the spectacle of running around London as well. But for me, I'm kind of with you on that. Why would I want to run around London?
Yeah, I think if I was to do like obviously, if I had the opportunity, if somebody said, "Harry, here's a place in the London Marathon," I'd probably snap their hand off. But I tried for next year and couldn't. But I'm looking at the London Landmarks one, the half, because you see all of what you want to see on the run, but just in half the time. And then obviously we spoke about the potential next adventure, which I'm not going to say too loudly about because it's very much like I've very much got some recovery to do, and like I don't, it sounds a bit deep, but not reassess, but just have a little look at what is a priority for me at the moment. And I don't think it's taking on another ridiculous endurance challenge when it comes to all of our 5Fs, right? It's probably finance and getting the business kicking off more than what the fitness is. So it's gone lower down on the priority list, and looking after my body a little bit more after battering it for probably what was 4 months, like where I was running so far every week, if not every other week, big distances over tough terrain. Yeah, it's time to just to take my foot off the gas on that front a little bit.
How did you find that balance then between those different areas of our life we're trying to improve on? Your finance, your fun, your mental health, your business, all these different things, taking on this challenge where it's not like you just go to the gym 3 times a week, 45 minutes and do a bunch of exercises. It's quite an intensive, very specific and long in terms of the amount of time it would take you each week to do this. How did you work that balance out?
I'm really fortunate in a sense that I had people around me that were very helpful in terms of the running side of things. So it was never too difficult for me to plan a run in with somebody who knew a little bit about long distance stuff. Like I've got some really fit mates and fit family friends. So that was like almost easy. In terms of balancing the other stuff though, it was hard, mate, because it was such a big challenge. It really, since when I booked it, which was, no, I'd say since we had that chat, mate, where you dropped the old I hope you're training for it, because like, and which I messaged you about afterwards, it definitely stuck in my mind. Since that moment there, it was really the forefront of my mind. Was I eating right for it? Was I eating right for my training runs? Was I in my, like, so in the program, just to let the listeners know, when you're ultra running or when you're practicing for an ultra, and again, I'm no expert, but just through what I'd researched and who I'd spoken to, your minimum run really like is a 10K, like, let's just say, and you're running that at no pace whatsoever, kind of like as comfortable as you can, not really testing your heart and your cardiovascular fitness. You want to be running that with no, like not really expending too much. You want to be able to hold a conversation, let's say, when you're running it. And then at the weekends, it was wherever and how, like I think I ran 11 weeks consecutive, a minimum of a half marathon on a Saturday. So that just shows, yeah, the effort that went into it. But I feel like everything else dropped off, but I didn't care because I had that focus, which is what we talk about, right?
Yeah.
Like when we are in, and almost when you live it, you see the proof of it. And which is why I was concerned, because like when I was training for this ultra, I had that focus of like, although I've got all of these 5 things that I'm trying to tick off here, whether it be relationship with family, trying to improve the financial side of my business, releasing this new journal, which I got done, but fuck me, it was like hard to continually put effort and energy into that. But then because I had the big thing on the horizon, it just kept me ticking forward, you know, which I think anybody who's struggling or anybody who is lacking a little bit of energy, they just need that little something on the horizon that they can aim towards.
Yeah.
Which then after I was like, even during the race, mate, I had those thoughts of, I'm on a bit of a tangent here, sorry. But even during the race, I had that feeling of like, what's going to be next? Because, and I think that's interesting. It was an interesting thought because I knew that at that time, when I was training for this thing, it was the greatest event of my life and the hardest thing I'd ever done. But when I got halfway through the ultra, 28K, I was like, I'm going to complete this. I'm going to do this. It was such a weird sensation to be like, I've got confidence in myself here to be able to complete this now.
Nice.
But
I'm going to come. Oh, go. Sorry.
Yeah, but then it was like, but like, I didn't think I could do this. So how, like, it was like it was one of those feelings that was, it offered me excitement, but it also offered me a sense of fear. Like you fucking nailed this, mate. You're nailing this. You're literally smashing your greatest ever fucking challenge. What's gonna have to be next to tick that next list, the next level up, but then again, you can switch that to be an exciting thought and be like, well, if you can continually level up, then happy days.
Of course, man. I think it's like, people got to choose their battles in a positive and negative sense. So something like an ultra marathon, like I said, it isn't popping to the gym for 45 minutes 3 times a week. Trying to lose, well, any amount of weight from 5 to 50 kilos shouldn't take over your life that everything else suffers. It really shouldn't. It's not that big of a thing. And if it does, then you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And you need to look at how you are balancing every other area of your life. And are you doing too much? And obviously we can show you ways on how to make sure you're not neglecting the most important areas of your life whilst you work towards some sort of challenge. When you said, I want to come back to what you said there, you got to that halfway point. And you could say that's what true confidence is, right? That moment where you've got halfway and you go, I've got this. I know I'm going to finish this. Did that change your approach to how you ran the second half of it?
It did a little bit, yeah, because the first half I could genuinely say I didn't allow myself to enjoy that much. I did run into like a few unexpected stumbling blocks that we can talk about, I'm sure, throughout the whole thing. But during the whole event, there was 4 checkpoints. Checkpoint 1, I barely even remember the first half of the race, mate. I remember actually one part of it where I looked across this landscape, and I was like, they could have filmed Jurassic Park here. It looks fucking amazing. But then everything else was like, am I running the right time? Am I drinking the right amount of fluid? Like, all of these things that I knew would get me to finish the race was just on the top of my mind. And then a second checkpoint as well, that's when it started getting a little bit rough. And there was one point in the second checkpoint where it had been quite wet, but it wasn't like horrendously wet, but it was just that like surface level mud had gone wet. And because I was probably midway in the pack, like hundreds of people had run over this path already, so it had like skidded up a little bit, and I was on the top of this like ravine, let's just say, like on the cliff face with a mud path, and every step I was taking was almost pointless because my foot would go sideways, or like all the momentum of my running just there was just no point. So I was like, but I could feel myself getting really fucking angry. I was like, fucking hell, all this energy that I'm gonna need in
Yeah.
40k's time, I'm
Yeah.
using now. But then you just get over that, and then I got to the second checkpoint, which was 24k, and my mum and her partner had managed to like find a spot where I could change my top. I chucked some fuel in, like just like literally carbs, and I was like, fuck, like I actually feel okay. I feel okay, and all I've got to do is that. It sounds ridiculous, but all I've got to do is that again. I feel I can do that, and then it did allow me to just chill a little bit more, I think is the right words. I was way ahead of schedule on the checkpoint times. Like, cause obviously with the ultra, you have like cut-off times.
Okay.
So as well, that's in the back of your head. Like, am I running fast enough to meet the cut-off times? The last thing you want to do is like, it's 70 quid plus all of your like equipment that you've bought for the day, is get to checkpoint 3 and they say, sorry, Harry, mate, you've missed it by 5 minutes. Like, but I was never close to that, not once. So that just gave me a bit of extra confidence to say, fucking hell, I'm doing way better here than what I thought I was going to. But I can only put that down to the fact that I trained really fucking hard for it, right?
Yeah. So is there like for this event, maybe not for others, is there like a prerequisite that you've got to have hit like a certain time for a certain distance?
No. So the fucking ultras, they do put a caveat in that you have to prove that you've got a strong ultra running background. So the guy that I had on the podcast last week, Jody Bovey, ran the Dragonback mountain race in Wales, which is 5 days of back-to-back ultra marathons over mountains and rock climbing, and you sleep in a tent overnight, and like unfathomable, really. Like when you look at the ultra I did, which is also scary to think, like I'm Vanarama South and he's just competed in the Premier League. You know what I mean? Like fucking unbelievable. But in this one, no, it was definitely it just sounds mad to just say it was definitely a beginner's one. But one thing I did notice, mate, is that of all the running events I'd done in the past, like local 10Ks, park runs, even half marathons, there are fun runners there, right? There are people there that have done it for, or are doing it for, like I did mine for charity, but they're all like, they don't really care that they're going to run this half marathon in 4 hours, or they don't really care that they're going to run this or run and walk a 10K. Lining up on the front of this, everybody is a fucking athlete, mate. Like apart, and I felt like, holy fucking shit, like I'm potentially out of my depth on this start line here, but again proved to myself that, like the evidence was there to show that I wasn't out of my depth. I wasn't in the last like 10. I was in top 2/3 of people that finished. So yeah, it's fucking mental, really, mate. But yeah, don't take on an ultra marathon unless you're fucking ready for it. That would be my advice to people.
Even then with the fun runners, like 34 miles, that's not a Sunday stroll.
No.
That's gonna do you over no matter what your reasons for doing it are, you know?
One of the lessons that I did take away from it is that it was something that Mia said when I had her on the show. And it was basically that distance is just a perception. Which I agree with to some extent. Obviously, there is a distance that you'll hit, and that will be your physical limit. But of course, with the right training, the right programming, the work going into specific muscles that you need for those high inclines, you can get yourself to it. But I feel like it's something, if you were about to like sign the dotted line on doing this said event, you need to really probably put some consideration into why you're doing it, and if you're prepared to put the work in for a minimum of 3 months before the event even comes around.
That's the thing, it's worth remembering. Like everyone talks about the mindset, the attitude as they're doing it, how they got through the bits that got tough, their reasons of doing it. The fitness industry loves to talk about people's why. You can't run a marathon on mindset alone. There's got to be the aerobic base. There's got to be the endurance capacities. You've got to think about you as a vessel on a biological level separately away from your mindset. But your mindset can also be dictated during that event by what's happening physiologically in your body, by parts of your body screaming out for oxygen, by capillaries going, I can't convert this gas quick enough, from the lactate in your muscles going, Jesus Christ, we've done all this training on a 10-degree incline, and now we're on a 30-degree incline for the next 15 minutes only. Can be absolutely brutal.
Yeah. And that was probably, if we was to go to like one of the challenges that I did hit, I invested hugely in finding out as much information as possible. We've spoken about it before when we were talking about the build up to the ultra, but my sweat levels are really, really fucking high, really high for average human. Whereas to the extent that I had to take the maximum sodium capsule every hour, but that still didn't do the trick, mate. And this is where like I haven't spoke about it too much because it's a little bit funny that I put all this effort and chat into the fact that I was so prepared with all of this shit that I had to take on the day, but still I got 20k in and my muscles just were like, nah, like we're gonna give you another challenge, basically.
Yeah.
And I was coming down some steps into Kimmeridge Bay, which is like incredible. I do remember seeing that. I was like, fuck me, that's amazing. And I just started getting cramp in like the bottoms of my calves and the tops of my quads. I was like, no, like don't. But what was I gonna do? Like get to 20k and go, nah, getting cramp, I'm fucking pulling out, or carry on. And I somehow, like I say somehow, it was defo mind over matter at sometimes. Like I was almost trying to ignore the fact that I had cramp. When I felt cramp, I'd just go into like deep breathing mode and carry on. And even with cramp, I was running relatively decent Ks, which just, again, like if I look at Harry 7 years ago to Harry now, there'd have been not a fucking hope in hell. Not a hope in hell.
So what is the switch when something like that happens? You're 20k in, you're not even halfway. Your muscles are cramping up because of an issue that you know you've already got. Like mentally and physically, what do you do there? Like, is there like of the stuff that you had with you, was there a specific sup that helped alleviate some of that cramping? Nothing at all. Oh my God.
Ibuprofen when I saw Mum. That was literally yeah. Like seriously, so the story was I got to checkpoint 2 and I had cramp and I was like, fucking hell, I'm gonna have to put more sodium in my body. And then I got my I haven't got an example of it, but basically these capsules come in a tube, like something that you'd see Barocca in, that kind of tube, yeah. And where I'd been running with this tube on my back, when I opened the fucking top of it, it was like I'd not opened it for 30 years and a puff of smoke. And I was like, fucking hell, all of these capsules are disintegrated basically into what looked like white powder. I was like, again, through sheer practice alone of just not getting triggered about shit, I was like, can still make this work. I asked the fella behind the thing if they had any of their own, and they did, luckily. So I like with a mixture of mine and theirs, I reckon I put 2,002, like I basically put 1.5 of these capsules in each of my squidgy bottles and was like, right, maybe that'll just top me up to the next thing, but it didn't. And I was still getting the cramp. So then you've just got to go, well, I've done literally like on a level of your brain, you've got to have a conversation with yourself and go, there's no fucking point getting annoyed about this. Like you've got two choices. You either quit because you got cramp, or you just carry on as best as you can. And you just got to remember that, like, if I'd have gone to that event on the day, Rob, and I'd not done any prep whatsoever in the sense of knowing that I've got cramp, but I hadn't tried to prepare for the fact that I'm quite a high risk cramper.
Yeah.
I could have been pissed off if I'd done nothing. I'd have probably been really annoyed at myself. But because I'd done everything to my knowledge at the time to try and avoid it,
yeah,
I just I was like, it was almost a sense of acceptance, which can lead to so many other areas of life.
Yeah.
And like not creating stress for yourself. That was what went through my head. It was that training of like, you're going to create friction here that you don't need if you start getting annoyed that you're getting cramped.
Mm.
And there was almost a sense of like subconscious mindfulness that I went into for parts of it when I felt like I was in pain, but the ibuprofen helped as well, I think.
So not knowing that specific situation now, how you found yourself at checkpoint 2, and potentially the point of the race where the cramp creeped in, what would you now do? Let's say you're doing another ultra marathon start of the year, something like that.
Yeah.
What would you now do to prepare for that specific situation?
So I have dived deeper into this, and there are two types of crampers apparently. The most common type of cramper is somebody that loses like mainly sodium through their sweat, which is what obviously we tagged myself with. But there's also an element of potassium and magnesium that you can lose at high rates as well. So if you tick all three of those boxes, not just the solely salty one, there's a good chance that I might be okay. And that's something that I'm going to have to just experiment with when I feel like I fancy doing a longer run. And like, I will fancy doing a longer run before Christmas, no doubt, but I'll just magnesium, potassium and sodium myself up and try that. And I think before I commit to another one, I would like to know that I've got that situation handled before signing a waiver to say that I'm about to take on another long distance endurance event. Yeah. Sure. I think apart from that though, mate, I was like, yeah, like I said, I did as much as you shouldn't really train longer than 3 hours for an ultra, like in terms of your training. And like, or accidentally I trained longer than 3 hours, but in terms of actual prep, physical prep, I couldn't have done any more. Yeah. So if I was to sign up for another one, I know that I've got the training discipline in me. I've got evidence of that in the past. But now when it comes to managing muscles, talking to your body and fueling your body properly, that's something that I've got to get right for sure.
When you say you wouldn't need to train more than 3 hours, you mean is that per session?
Per session, yeah. Just for recovery purposes.
What was like your total volume for the week then?
The longest, I did a 43k week, which was a 33k long distance run where I basically did a lap of Bath. There's something, I can't remember the exact title, but there's 6 hills in Bath or around the outskirts of Bath, at Bath, however you pronounce it. And me and my cousin, like who I relate back to and say that he was such an amazing person to train with on like throughout this whole process, because he'd done one before. He's a really good runner anyway, so it's just good standards to aim for, you know. But anyway, yeah, we did the 6 hills around Bath, and that equated to 33k. And then of course in that same week I'd done my smaller, like I guess it's a recovery run, which sounds crazy, doesn't it? But yeah, the 10k recovery run. So that was the maximum amount of distance I did in a week.
Were you worried too much about times in your training pace?
No, and that was subconsciously, yeah, because your ego always wants to kick in. And there were times where I'd let it have a laugh, and I'd let myself play with times and be like, right, okay, how quickly can I do this 10k? But that was earlier in the training than like building up to the event. But actually you've just got to take a really good hard look at yourself and say what's important here. And that's the difference, between training for a half marathon, where you literally are like, okay, like I said to you at the start, I wanted to do it in less than 2 hours. So I had a goal that I could train 4 times with at the start of my training with the half marathon. With the ultra, it was about finishing in less than 8 hours. So of course you've got a rough idea about time, but really I knew that if worst case scenario hit and I got injured or like the cramp was unbearable, I could have probably power walked myself to just about finishing within that 8 hours. So yeah, you've got to be so careful that you're not pushing for time, because as well, if you push for time, you're pushing your body harder, your recovery is going to be longer, and you're not going to be ready for that week's half marathon, let's just say. Yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, I get it. I think people need to remember, whatever the physical challenge that you're going for is, there's a hierarchy to all of it. Right? If you, let's say you want to bench, let's say you want to get to, most people with a semi standard level of strength and horrific technique could probably get 100 kilo bench. But 140 ain't moving, because 140 will take years potentially of multiple high quality 100 kilo reps before you're putting the weight on, before you're getting to 110, 115, 120, etc. 120, most people aren't going to even hit, right? So it's drilling back technique with the bar. It's drilling speed, it's drilling power, it's drilling strength, it's pause reps, it's like the entire spectrum of strength, which is its own multiverse on its own, before we even get to the opposite end of the fitness multiverse spectrum and look at endurance. But similar thing, you need to, I've had this issue myself when I'm trying to embark on a bit of a running journey myself. First, I've just got to get used to going slow.
Yeah,
not even worry about the times. Just worry about, okay, this thing says run for 3 minutes at a comfortable pace. Just doesn't matter.
No.
I'm speeding, doesn't matter what the time says on the end of it. Doesn't matter if my split times are consistent. This stage of the game, it does not matter. It's just time on your feet. And then later down the line, when you want to get more specific, then you worry about making that slow fast. And I think for most people, that point probably doesn't need to come.
No.
Really. I think when you're getting to that next elite almost level, that's when you worry about making slow into fast.
And this is why it's important that this is why you're completely right with your point of, if you want to take on a goal, you need to make sure it's the right reasons, because not everybody needs to hit a 140 kg bench, right? And if you're going to take that like challenge on, fair crack. But remember that for the next 6 months to a year of your life, you're going to be training bench 2 or 3 times a week in the gym.
Yeah.
Whether that be Larson, close grip, pause, you're going to have some kind of element of bench training in. And that's why powerlifters, like, I take my hat off to them, because I'm sat here in the one time that I took an event on, but t-shirt, but it's just relentless consistency doing the same shit. Like, and I say shit with respect, because it's fun shit when you lift heavy weight. Like, of course it is. But there's an element to go, okay, you want to be a powerlifter, you've got to really make sure you want to be a powerlifter, because like I say, it can become boring. And that is the one thing that I've probably learned over since 2015 with my fitness and whatever journey that it's been, mindset journey, is that I don't know why, but I've just got to keep all boxes ticking at all times when it comes to my fitness. I don't have I guess it must be patience to just stick to one thing for a long period of time, or it's the fact that I just like to be stimulated too much. And I like to be doing, I don't know, I've not really worked out the reasons behind it. But of course, again, when it comes to running, you're absolutely right. You've got to be really sure that it's what you want to do.
Yeah. I think like you've got to remember, especially in terms of, well, both opposite ends of the spectrum, elite level powerlifting, elite level endurance style events, you've got to be willing to take on all the time it's going to take, the fact that you will have to sacrifice other areas of your life, and the battle through injuries as well.
Yeah.
Find me a world record producing powerlifter that's not had a spine injury, that's not had shoulder injury, that's not had potentially a pec tear, bicep tear. They don't exist. And it's not because the event is bad for them. It's because the sheer brutal relentlessness of battling hundreds of pounds on a weekly basis against gravity will do that to you. Same thing on the road. We're seeing this, I forget his name, but the hardest geezer on Instagram running the length of Africa.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, he's
forgotten his name as well.
not his name. So sorry,
Russ.
bruv. And I loved watching
Russ.
it.
Is it Russ?
Maybe. And again, someone whose name I can't remember, who's run the, I think it was unofficial for whatever reason I don't understand, but who ran the new fastest marathon time, and there's all these
Oh yeah, fuck
challenges
me.
going on the speed he's actually running
Yeah,
and
yeah,
things like that. And again, like I can't imagine his journey would have been completely injury free, but it's a next level of how do you train for these things. There's one of my old coaches, Mark Twight, an amazing guy, alpine athlete. He's done all sorts of alpine mountain climbing routes that people haven't done afterwards because they were so bad. He's trained the 300 actors through Jim Jones, Henry Cavill, all sorts of stuff. Navy SEAL trained, incredible guy. He understands what endurance really is, and one of the biggest things out of his books. There's a little chapter called "There's No Such Thing as a Free Lunch." You're not going to cheat endurance by trying to build it in the gym. It comes from doing the fucking thing, doing the work, not
yeah,
just putting the time in, but specific to that event. For example, you got to that point in the ultra marathon where you're then running through a thin layer of mud that you're not used to, and it's sending you all over the flipping place. That in itself is a specific level of training. Okay, there's only so much control you have over that, but that's something you'd not experienced before. And in certain areas of the world where you might do more ultras or even further distance than what you've already done, it's not just time and distance anymore. Terrain is one thing. You've then also got to think of what's happening inside of your body, your preparation in terms of your subs, everything. This is not, like we say, it's not a Sunday stroll in the park. It's not a fun run. It's not a park run. It's not a Sunday morning 5K. And I'm not saying anything against those things whatsoever, because that's one level on the ladder of preparation for people to get to this bit.
yeah.
You're looking at 5K as like the 100-kilo bench. 10K, I think, is too much of a mental battle for the normal person, undertrained normal person to hit. But 5K, you could probably, a group of mates, you could probably surprise yourself and get a 5K in there.
Yeah, I reckon.
But it won't be the best run event ever. And again, time might be absolutely horrific. But I think like 10K is a bit too much of a mental push for some people.
It's a real interesting concept to think of, right? Because when I speak about my early journey, 1 mile was too far, mate.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to say, yeah, that's fine. Like you don't when it comes to I probably made a mistake and ran too much when I was really, really big. And I imagine that one day it may have a little knock-on effect on my muscles or bones when I'm older. Who knows? But luckily I'm training in a way that I'm looking after my body more now.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think is really important for anybody, like no ceiling can hold you back if you really don't want to let it. So what I'm saying by that is, yeah, 10K for most people, you can't just go out and run it now, like, and expect to get a sub 1 hour time. But what you can do, if that's what you want and you are looking to get fitter, is say, okay, in 3 months' time, I want to run a 10K that is respectable, but you start today.
Yeah.
And you put the work in and you commit to it. And those days where you don't have the motivation to go out and do your 6K practice run at a steady pace where you can have a conversation with somebody, that's fine. But if you don't do it still, you're not going to get that result at the end of the 3 months. But if you do it through that lack of motivation, you'll get the feel good feeling afterwards, and you're going to get the result at the end of it as well. And that's where I look at, like, mate, I don't mind admitting it. I got emotional at the end of the run. Just, I think there was probably some physical exhaustion there, but just, I just kept thinking after the halfway point, I'm going to finish this. And I kept getting this like real sense of like, well, I don't know. It was like I was like excited, sicky feeling.
Yeah, I get you.
Like it was, I could hear the music of the finish line in the background, and I was like, fucking hell. And that last K felt like it felt like 5 miles, because you're so close, but you're so exhausted. And I had this fella behind me. We're nearly there, mate. I'm going to catch you up. I was like, mate, if you've got a fucking sprint finish in you, you crack on, because I haven't. Like, so, but anyway, I managed to, like I said, I managed to keep my pace up and came out of this wood cut, like the videos online. I came out of this woods and there was the finish line. And I was that fucking exhausted, mate. I nearly ran past the turning to finish. But anyway, I got to the finish line and it just like, don't know, just stopping and accepting the, like, acknowledging the fact that over the last 8 years, I'd gone from not being able to run a mile, 135 kg, depressed, to taking that on and having the confidence to take it on and finishing it in 7 hours, 15 minutes just became overwhelming, mate. Like, and it, not overwhelming, that's a bit dramatic, but it just came out of me like, holy fucking shit, I've just done it. And I feel like that's the kind of feeling in life that not enough people strive to go and get. Like, I think it's Paul said it the other day, things may be okay for you, but it's what's wrong with wanting them to be better. And that's, I guess, where the challenge is. Like I said, with like, what's next for me? What's the big everyone wants to know now. Like on my story the other day, what's the next challenge? It's like, yeah, I'm really, really, really satisfied with my physical accomplishment recently, but it's okay. But it could be better. There's things out there that are better. But then again, like, that begs the question, like, where people get stuck in that trap of chasing. It's like the next car. Like, if it's not the next car, is it the next ultra? I don't know. Like, there's a real weird concept. Like, when do you just say, all right, like, that's okay? We've had this chat before, I think, where we've discussed when is too much, but I don't know. I think whilst there's fuel in the tank and there's a desire to want to do something more, then maybe we go for the next challenge. Absolutely. How have you been finding your endurance stuff? Tough?
Well, inconsistent more than anything. But once I get into it, I think it's because it's something new. I'm learning something new, and I'm quite happy to put myself in a beginner mindset. And I mean, I've been very careful where I've chosen to do it as well. My first few runs were in the treadmill at the gym where I go to, where, you know, it's a TV in front of me with This Morning on, and I'm not going to fucking watch that shit. So I'm just staring at what's next on my Spotify shuffle. But when I did the runs outside, I just got this urge to not have anything in my ears. I just wanted to listen to my body, listen to my thoughts, and actually learn about myself as I did this run, rather than trying to distract myself with music. And part of the reason I did that is if I ever found myself in an environment where I haven't got music to listen to, then it could potentially be an entirely different mental battle, because now the distraction's not there.
I think what else is important to say as well, some runs won't let you wear headphones.
So that's why get rid of that now, starting that practice. And I think it's so much better to do as well. We do this all the time. We all need a dopamine detox anyway. We all listen to too much music. We've always got the earphones in. Probably ain't that good for you, the Bluetooth in your earlobes at 24 hours a day. So I wanted a break from that as well. Running outside was actually enjoyable. I never thought I would say that about the limited number of runs that I've done, which has reminded me over the last couple of weeks to sort my shit out and get this done. But it comes back to that comfort zone. We're all living in it most of the time, but some of us are striving to expand the reach of that comfort zone, because comfortable's okay. There's less risk, there's less fear, there's less frustration. You can fool yourself into thinking that's the end goal. This is happiness because I'm doing okay, because I'm comfortable. And for some people that works, but in a large percentage of us, some of us, it's been watered down and caged. Some of us, it's very much alive and raging. There is this intense desire for more, to do more, to be more, to see more, to experience more. And if you had stayed running at 10Ks and just done 10K races and got your time faster and faster and faster, and you did a podcast about, I just ran my fastest 10K, it wouldn't be the same experience as what you've experienced doing this ultra marathon, because that's an entirely different flipping ball game, isn't it, bruv?
Yeah, and speaking about no, I did the whole thing without headphones, just
Yeah.
because not you were allowed them, and I saw many people with them, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it'd be quite nice to listen to, I don't know, some heavy metal right now, but I just chose to be,
Mm.
like I said, it just be with whatever emotion or feeling or thought I had on the day. And you like going back to what you were saying regarding you can't just wing the
Mm.
training for these endurance events. Like the first, I remember sending a video into the chat, mate. I don't know if you remember. It was like that windy day. I was down at Weymouth. I was like, I did 17K on the cliff sides, and it fucked me, like completely and utterly fucked me. Like, and I was like, shit, that's not even halfway.
Yeah.
And that's like the reality check. I think that you do need to go and give yourself before. And then that was a decision point there and then, wasn't it? Like I've not even ran halfway. My body's in bits. I'm fucking up. I'm crying because I've basically obliterated myself.
Yeah.
I've got cramp in every muscle that I didn't even know that I had. Do you still want to do it? Yes or no? You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like, what a fucking reality check. Straight
Yeah.
up, bang.
What are you gonna do? Like
Yeah.
that literally is it. When I got to my darkest moments during the fan dance, I'm on the uphill ascent of Jacob's ladder in
Minging.
the middle of a storm on my own, wanting to bail, saying I quit, literally screaming out once I got over this edge and thought this was the top, and then realized there's another 200 fucking meters. Screamed at the sky like a pansy. It's quite embarrassing now, but at the same time, what am I going to do? No one's going to carry me over. They're not going to bring a helicopter in to get me out. My car is the other side of the fucking mountain. So get up and get the other side of the
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
mountain. What's the point? And like this is the thing with your physical thing. You could be. I had this conversation with Simon recently about people using the genetics and stuff like that as an excuse. There is a chance without it being my area of expertise whatsoever. Not you may have done tests, you may not have done this area of it, but with your sodium, potassium, magnesium balance, that could be an issue with your adrenal glands. That could be a fixable issue. That could not be fixable. And without wanting to scare you or anything like that, that's just one potential possibility of why you're sweating more than other people and your balance goes out super quickly. But if that is actually the case, if you got a test done and they said, yeah, there's a slight malfunction in adrenal glands or something that's causing this imbalance, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to stop fucking doing your running, are you?
Well, it just comes back to a conversation that's going to be released on Friday with Lewis Potts.
Love it.
He's had fucking a metal
Mm.
valve put in his heart, but he still wants to go and take on challenges that
Yeah.
doctors are telling him that he shouldn't. I don't know. Like, I was speaking to a friend about this recently, just that there's another level to life that not many people are
Mm.
prepared to. They're not prepared to see it, or they don't have the awareness to accept that there's more. And
Cool.
I
Mm.
guess it's like without being patronizing, because there are some very experienced people and very clever people out there that are living this kind of I don't know, underwhelming
Yeah.
aura, or like living in an
Yeah.
underwhelming like safety zone, safety blanket. But without the, I don't know, man. I don't know how to get I don't know how to get the message out there more without. It almost seems like you're patting people on the back and saying, "Come on, you can do more." But that's not it. It's just like,
Mm.
if you were to take on more challenges, if you were to build your resilience by doing whatever, like more gym work or taking on endurance events, if you were to get yourself out of your comfort zone by starting that band or business, or I don't know, setting up that event that you've always been talking about you were going to do, but you've not done it because you're scared that nobody will respond positively to it, or you're scared that somebody will think this about you, or you're scared that you don't have the capabilities to do it. That's challenge number one. Get over that hurdle first. And I've been like having this. I really want to try and define it into this 100% mentality thing, but it's like the decision making circle that we all go through, right? Like whether you have a brainwave or a thought or a craving, let's just say whatever goes through your head, whether it be I crave a bar of chocolate or I am scared to do this because I'm worried about what Dave will say down the road, or I'm fearful of starting my business because it might fail. At that moment that you have that thought, you've got a decision to either take the action anyway, regardless of your negative thinking towards it, which could lead to a positive experience, action, impact on your health, or you listen to that negative thought, you don't do anything about it, and then that negative continuum carries on.
Yeah.
Almost inevitably forever if you continue to listen to that thought. And I think that's what it is, unfortunately, is that there are many people in life that accept that what their brain tells them is the normal and what they should listen to. Whereas actually, all it is a thought. You have 60,000 of them a day. You can literally prove yourself wrong at the blink of an eye with any decision that you've ever had or ever going to have. And I don't know how the message gets spread more and like the education gets spread more, that's how you break these cycles.
You've got different stages of contemplation for any endeavor. You've got pre-contemplation. You could almost call this denial. People are living in an area that is completely in the comfort zone that is actually going to be detrimental to them later down the line. Then you've got contemplation, which is where people realize they've got a problem, but they're not necessarily willing to tackle it yet. They just recognize they've noticed the clothes aren't fitting. They've caught sight of themselves in the mirror, breathless when they get to the top of the stairs. I'm just talking about this from a fitness perspective because that's my bread and butter, obviously. You could tie this into any area of life. After contemplation comes preparation. They realize there's a issue, and now they're looking towards what they need to do. Is that hiring a PT? Is that joining a local gym? Is that downloading a program? Is that speaking to a financial advisor? Is that getting on a dating app? Something like that. Then it's action after that. Action, actually doing the thing. And most people stop there. They stop at action. Or some people never get to action, right? Some people think about it, think that would be great. They get the dopamine hit of reading about this stuff and researching it and then never taking action on it. But once you get to action, the magic is in maintenance. Keeping on doing that thing and doing it for a prolonged period of time so you can actually see the results rather than getting the dopamine hit of, well, I tried, I started. But after maintenance, there's relapse. And most of us fall into relapse in some area of our life at some point.
Yeah.
Some can get straight from relapse back into action. Some people go from relapse all the way down to pre-contemplation. They're the people, well, I used to. Yeah, I did that years ago. I used to bench 100 kilos. And you look at them now, you're like, bruv, you can't even get up the stairs. Like, who gives a fuck that you benched 100 kilos 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Do. But some people, their highlight of the year is when they get to that day and they can post a Facebook memory of a joke that they made 5 years ago that got the most likes or something stupid like that, right? There is another level to this, but not everyone thinks about it. Not everyone cares to get there. We all have the ability to. That's the difference. If we move through those different stages, it all takes time. It takes failure. It takes bouncing back. It takes relapse creeping in at multiple points. But we all have the ability to get to a next thing. Not necessarily the elite level, but everyone has it in them to do more than what they're currently doing right now and to experience more than what they're currently experiencing. And the people who are in pre-contemplation that you want to reach, it takes a very, very different tactic, which almost means just ignoring them and doing what you do. As Paul says, being the lighthouse, right? You've got to do what's best for you, not what's best for other people. You can show up and show what's possible, and they'll catch onto it or they don't catch onto it, right?
Yeah.
So many people base their actions or their potential action on what those people might think. And in reality, those people don't care because they're too busy in their own little world thinking about themselves and they think everything's fine.
I completely agree with you. And I don't know, do you follow Ben Carpenter?
BCD. Yeah.
He's incredible. I think he's a really well balanced fitness opinion online is what I'm gonna. And just the video he did recently about, and like it was a very leading, it was a very clickbaity clip from LBC about the guy saying, I could eat. Basically, it was the woman was saying that you could, like, your body would rebound to your genetically, like, weight, your genetic weight and your genetic size, even if you was to lose weight. And the fellow was making the argument of eat less, move more. I'll look like an athlete in 3 months type thing. And he was saying there's a balance between this, because there are people that will lose weight and rebound to the top. And I'm sure you've had clients that have been with you for a small amount of time that have done everything you've told them to do for that short amount of time, and then even though they've got the education to continue doing it, they just decide not to because they've not got the voice in their ear. And I've had the same as well.
Yeah.
But it is important to remember that, like, it is a choice to do that. And where I'm going with this is, for the first time in my life, mate, ever, somebody said to me at a family evening do recently, I don't mind saying it, they basically said, I'm jealous of your body, mate. And I was like, cool. Like, and this is somebody that I've known for a long time. And I would, like, 10 years ago, they were way fucking fitter than me. And the scales have just tipped.
Yeah.
And I was like, but like, and I literally, like, I've got so much respect. I love this person to bits. But I was in my head, I'm like, okay, come on then. Like, if you're prepared to eat less, move more, be disciplined, know that it's going to take longer than 3 months to sort this shit out, and you're prepared to balance your life, you can get the same results. Or are you happy with status quo now? And that, I think that's a question that everybody can ask themselves, isn't it?
Definitely. There's a lot of fitness consultations where people will ask, who do you want to look like? What celebrity's body do you like most? What celebrity's body do you want? And it should be a case that you wake up in the morning, look at your own body in the mirror and go, I like that. But from a genuine perspective, because there are people in denial that look up and go, it's all right, doesn't matter. Fix it in 20 years when there's a pill or a potion or whatever. I've got one more question for you, and it is not, what's the next challenge?
Okay.
So we've spoke a lot about the grueling elements of this race and the mental battles you went through, the physical battles you went through as well, the issues of terrain and all sorts of stuff. But what were the positives? What were the most memorable moments of doing that ultra?
Being in, it sounds like a selfish one, because I guess every action you take is selfish, but when I was in clutch mode, still encouraging other people that were in worse positions than me.
Nice.
Telling them that they've got it, asking them if they're okay. Like, even though at that, like, you may not be sure that you've even fucking got it. There was a moment, mate, where there's three. The three that have come to the top of my head. There was a moment, I swear to God, the biggest incline. I put a photo of it on my story the other day with my. It was when I say that they put it in. It was at 20 miles. You come around this corner of a bend and you're about to head back inland, and this, I'm gonna call it a mountain. It was a fucking mountain. Is in your forefront, and you're like, how the fuck am I gonna do this? Like, now with this fatigue, and there's a fella at the top of there with like a cowbell, basically going, come on, Maverick runners, like screaming at you, because he just knows what position everybody's in on that thing. And it's that steep that there's like what's the word I'm looking for? Foothold. Yeah, we'll go for footholds. Where you wedge your feet in on it, and then you plant your next foot, and like, you just got to keep moving. When I got to the top of there was another, like, it's just a confidence booster on the day. You know that that's the last incline of the, like, huge incline of the day, last steep one. You're like, right, I've got everything else that could come in front of me now. So that was another one where you're like, the fellas at the top, like, he gives you a fucking great big pat on the back, and he's like, well done. the rest of this is plain sailing now, kind of thing. So that was good. And then I have to say, just the finish, and everybody, like, there was a few people I knew there anyway, just by chance. So they were at the finish line. My mum and her partner just shouting at me, like, to get over it was just a moment I'll never forget, mate. Never, ever, ever forget. It was just something that will make me proud of myself. And then, from knock-on effect of it, my dad told me that he was proud of me after it, which, like, anybody who listens to this knows my dad. He's a hard fella to please, stubborn, old school, and to get that was fucking magnificent. Yeah, so there's that one, mate.
Nice, man. Nice.
Is that a nice place to wrap up?
Yeah, man. It's like there's the cliche, what were your biggest lessons? And what's next? And all the usual things, like I don't mind this. But my old man, anytime it's an athletic event and someone's just crossed the line and a reporter runs up to them, puts the mic in their mouth and says, "How do you feel?" My old man loses his shit. He's like, "What a stupid question. How do you think they feel?" "I feel knackered." Yeah. And I get it, right? They've just done something amazing, or they've just experienced extreme disappointment. And you kind of want to, I think it's almost helpful for the athlete. I'd maybe do it in a different approach. But it's almost helpful for the athlete to review the positive and the negative of those of whatever the hell happened. And the number of times I've seen false starters or people drop the baton and they're devastated in that post event interview, and they always mention, next time more prepared, next time do this, won't do this again. And it's so relevant for people to review. We do this every day, right? We do this every day, and we go deeper and do it every single week, much more in depth. You've got to review what you're doing, the positives and the negatives as well. And people are not finding enough positives, enough magic moments in their life to want to experience more. And they're not finding enough negatives to realize that their behavior is detrimental over a long period of time. And I think if people just did that, that's a fucking reel right there, isn't it, bruv? Come on, son.
Bang. I'm like that. Come on.
That's, yeah, man. Yeah, I'm going to stop saying that because then I'll just waffle trying to beat it.
Incredible. Rob, thank you so much for taking part of this role reversal today. I feel like you absolutely fucking nailed it, mate. I feel like I have taken... It's been really nice, actually, to just go back and relive it, walk through it and relive it again, which is really cool. Mate, where can people come and find you if they want to come and find you? And if we have any Richmond listeners, you need to go see the new gym.
If you are around Richmond, if you're a Ted Lasso fan, not that I've ever seen a single flipping episode of it, if you love that picturesque part of London, which you can't actually believe is London, and you're looking to get physically in the best shape of your life in a private facility where you won't have to worry about waiting for other people to get off the kit, crying eyes, being in the background of someone's TikTok video, and you want world-class trainers taking you through an incredible life transformation, then you need to follow Performance House LDN, as the kids are doing now on Instagram, Performance House LDN, or performance-house.co.uk. Or you can find me personally on Fat Loss Fast Lane on Instagram, either one of those. And let's talk. Let's have a chat.
Let's have a chat. Get in there. Today has been another episode of the 100% podcast from me, your host, Harry Purdy, and today's guest, Mr. Robb McGeary. If you didn't know, I am offering a free 14-day journal that you can get your hands on by clicking the link in my bio. It has the power to change your life and get you thinking about those positives more that Rob was referring to 5 minutes ago, and getting you thinking about the things that are happening that are good in your life rather than the shit. So I very much advise you to go over and download that. It has the potential to change the way you're thinking, feeling, and upgrade your energy by 100%. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please go over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and drop a 5-star review. It does go a long, long way to helping the show. And if you are watching on YouTube, hello, like, subscribe, get your fucking selves sorted out, and I'll see you next time. Take care.